Major signs of a huge change to the winter side with brutal cold and big snow potential over the coming month. Welcome in, folks. Happy Wednesday, November 19th. And continuing to break down this pattern change. We've been talking about it for a while, and we're starting to get close enough that it's really showing up on our model data. All the teleconnections we've been mentioning, things like the MJO, the NAO, the polar vortex, and all the other fun, fancy terminology that you hear often is starting to catch up to the near term, I think, in a lot of our model guidance. So I'm going to break it all down for you. I'm going to show you what I can't show you on TV that I've got plenty of time here to do, and give you the latest. Now, if you are new to the channel, though, welcome. My name's Gerald. I'm a meteorologist at WCCB Charlotte. If you haven't already, go ahead and like the video, subscribe, and hit the bell for the latest notifications. Doing all of that helps you stay weather-wise. It helps get these videos to you, and we've got a pretty active time frame coming up, so I think that's definitely going to be a beneficial thing, and it's free. It doesn't cost you a penny doing those. All it does is help you out and help me out. All right, folks, let's dive right on into it today. Don't want to waste too much time, and we'll start next to me is our European AI model. Yeah, those two big fancy letters, right? A and I. And I think starting to really work out here in the world of weather. We've had about a year or so of sampling these models, and so far they've performed quite well, generally speaking, especially sometimes compared to some of our more physics-based models, the typical ones like the normal Euro and the GFS or the American model that you often hear about. So what does it show? Well, it shows what we've been talking about. It's a pretty warm week or so ahead, maybe even less than that now, maybe 5 or 6 days ahead. And then there you go. You see the blue starting to dive down into the eastern United States, I think in multiple waves. I think right after Thanksgiving, it's starting to look a lot more likely we get a good shot of cold air for about everybody here east of the Rockies. And then as we start December, another big shot of cold air. Where does that one happen? Still up for debate, but we're going to talk about the possibilities here throughout the video. And obviously, when you have cold air chances rising, you're automatically going to increase the chances of snow as well, especially as we start to get into December. Climatology going to work a little bit more favorably with us. All right, so what's happening out there right now, though? Before we dive into the long range, I do want to give you an update on the near term, and won't spend too much time on this. I know you're all here probably to hear about snow chances later on. But like I said, we're going to get a warm up, and you can already see that on our satellite imagery. Notice how the jet stream is starting to buckle up today, and that's that warmer air pulling northward. I am expecting a storm system to develop. Could bring some rainfall, maybe even a little bit of severe weather and snow for some of us, but this is going to be a much warmer system than the past couple have been. You can already see that with, like I said, the jet stream kind of buckling up and kind of pulling north here with some of that energy. As for radar, we did get some snow yesterday. If you're watching in Pennsylvania, if you're watching in New Jersey, Michigan, New York, Connecticut, let me know what you saw. I was asleep for the entire time that last night's event happened, so maybe you woke up with some accumulation, maybe you didn't, maybe you got some white rain, as we call it, where it's snowing, but it's basically like rain because it doesn't stick to anything. Definitely give me those reports down into the comments. Always love to hear that. Then we've got some rain back up into the Dakotas, Minnesota, and we've got some rain back into the desert Southwest, where our next storm system is beginning to develop. So yeah, those reports also are very helpful. So I would love for those in the comments. Also, I want to give a quick shout out. I'm not going to name drop because I don't know if they want their name dropped, but I got an email yesterday, actually with my work email. Somebody said that they were watching from pretty far from Charlotte, but they had, I think it was friends or relatives down this way that they told to tune in. So always feel free to reach out to me on social media as well. Nice things like that always make my day. So appreciate that person who reached out, and you can always feel free to do so as well. All my social media stuff is linked in the description. All right, that's the end of the beginning part of the video, though. Let's get into the good stuff. Let's start by, again, showing you model data over the near term, and then really diving into that winter weather forecast right after that. All right, let's go ahead and break down the near term for you really quickly, and overall pretty boring across the eastern United States. I'll zoom this out and show you the entire country next. But you can see that next storm system developing throughout the day today. That's beginning to show some rain back out towards Texas, Oklahoma. This is by tomorrow morning on Thursday, and pretty widespread rain from the Ozarks through much of Oklahoma, even back into New Mexico. I know you can't see it quite well on this view, but like I said, I'll zoom it out in a second. Relatively dry in the eastern U.S., though, but that storm system starts building northward, and by the time we get to the evening and overnight of Thursday, it's raining in Kansas, Colorado. We've got rain in Oklahoma, still Texas. Don't rule out some severe weather on the south side of that. I'm not going to dive into that a lot in today's video. Again, we're focusing on the winter side of things, but be weather aware with that. And then you can see some of that rain by overnight Thursday and into Friday morning, stretching east through the Tennessee and Ohio Valley. And as far out as this model goes is Friday morning. And yeah, we've got some snow in Colorado. Colorado, but mainly, like I said, a pretty warm system here and some snow stuck up into Canada, but not a very cold system. I'll show it to you on a zoomed out view. This is the European model. You can see a pretty wet couple of days into the Four Corners, into the southern plains as well, here into your Thursday, and then starts to pull east. Here's by Friday evening. Like I said, a pretty showery kind of event. Like I mentioned earlier, there could also be some severe weather. I don't think it'll be an outbreak or anything, but we'll keep an eye on that. Kind of works through the Ohio Valley and then gets out of here. And by the time we get into, let's see, this is Saturday afternoon. Yeah, we got some showers and maybe some storms over the mid-Atlantic, but most of the country is quiet, and it stays that way all the way until right about here. This is next Monday and Tuesday. That's when the change really begins, right before Thanksgiving. That's when cold air starts to dive south. The storm system could try to link up with it, and I think from here on out, we really start to get back to more of the winter-like pattern. So that's what you've been waiting for. Let's talk about it. Let's break down when, where, how strong, and why over the rest of the video. Drum roll, everybody. Right? Something like that. It's that time, though. Yeah, let's get to the nerdy stuff. Let's get to the nitty-gritty meteorology. Again, the stuff I can't show you on TV because I just don't have enough time to. That's really what it boils down to. Let's get to that 500 millibar height anomaly map. And we'll start with the European model. This is the classic Euro, the physics-based European. And I'll show you the European AI, the new kid on the block. And then I'll show you the European ensembles. And you're wondering, well, Gerald, why not the GFS? Well, the GFS sucks is why. It just has been really bad this year. So I'm going to stick to the stuff that is done better. And I think that'll make me probably a better forecaster in the end. All right, so what is it showing? Well, in the near term, basically all three of the models I'm going to show you are on board with the idea that this ridge is going to start to flex its muscles over the eastern U.S. Remember, those orange and red colors, those are the heat miser colors. The blue colors are the snow miser colors. That's where you've got a higher chance for cold weather and storminess, which doesn't always mean snow for everybody. So don't look at blue and just expect everywhere in blue is snow, but it's the ingredients you need for it at least, or at least some of the ingredients you'll need. Obviously, for some folks, it's a lot easier to get snow than others, so it can be complicated. But either way, it shows that red in the eastern U.S. or that orange over the near term. When's the change come? Well, there could be one little piece of cold that dives down into the Hudson Bay of Canada and clips the Northeast by this weekend, but the real cold air I'm watching gets here right around here. This is by next Tuesday. Notice what it's showing. It's got cold air starting to develop and dive down out of Canada. I know it looks small at first. It'll get bigger here in a moment. And then also a little shortwave piece of energy down south. So if those two can link up, we could easily get some winter weather over the central and northern part of the United States by about a week or so from now is when the timing would be on that. You keep it going further out into time, you can see them link up, and then right after Thanksgiving, this is Black Friday, that big block of cold air diving into the eastern U.S. Now, it's not going to mean snow for everybody, but some of us definitely could get snow out of it for the weekend of Thanksgiving, or the one right after that is, the Black Friday weekend, the one going into December. But either way, cold air is what it looks like. It's going to break down that pattern of warm air a lot of us have seen it. I say a lot of us, I don't mean everybody. The Northeast has still been pretty cold recently, but you can see that kind of works in. Then the ridge tries to build back in on the models, tries to get warm again in the east to start December, but you notice it doesn't last forever as another big shot of Arctic air. This one much stronger, this one having a connection to the Arctic. You can see you've got blue all the way up in Canada, reaching all the way down to the United States, showing up there at the end of the model run. So that's the good old-fashioned physics-based European, and obviously you get further out in time, you know, the more cattywampus it gets a little bit, I guess. So let's show you the other two models. Let's show you the AI model and then the ensembles, which are really a lot better tool to use this time of year, but I'm saving that one for the end because we save the best for last around here, right? All right, to the new kid on the block, this is the European AI model. It has done quite well recently, so what is it up to? Well, agrees here in the near term. We've got that ridge in the eastern U.S., got that little piece of energy swinging down into the Northeast, but then we'll pause it, and it also agrees by next Monday and Tuesday, a little bit quicker on this model than the other one. We've got a shot of cold air coming down into the northern Rockies and a little shortwave piece of energy below it. Now, if that shortwave to the south outruns the cold piece, then we're going to limit the chance for winter weather. But either way, shows this developing, same as the physics-based European model shows, this big trough of cold air working into the eastern United States right after Thanksgiving. Now, some models are a little bit quicker. This one would be maybe a cold Thanksgiving. The other one's going to be, you know, a semi-nice Thanksgiving day and then getting pretty cold for Black Friday onward. But also, like the other one, limits how long it's there. It's pretty transient. And the reason for that is, folks, we don't have much of a Greenland block showing up. You really need all of these brighter colors showing up, these red colors that is, up here into Greenland, and that kind of forces the cold air to get stuck down into the east. We don't have that right now, so this is very transient cold air. But with that said, there are still multiple shots of it. You can see another shot shows up, starts out west by December 1st, and then starts to try to shift east by the time we get towards December 3rd or 4th. And that's relatively similar to what the actual European model itself has. So to summarize between the two, shot of cold air right after Thanksgiving, then warm up again in the east, then another shot of cold air. But where does that second one happen is going to be a big question. Here's the ensembles. You put all of it together, and let me back it up. I'm giving you a bit of a spoiler alert here. Here we go. So there's that ridge in the near term. We've talked about that. We've beaten that to death. Then here comes that big shot of cold air. Agrees with both models the ensembles do here right after Thanksgiving. But it's transient, doesn't last forever. The ensembles dump that next shot of cold air back out west into the Rockies, and slowly by the 10 to 15 day range start to scoot it east. But notice something here. I want to talk about this because I think it's a very important part of the forecast. We've got this ridge over the eastern U.S. that's beginning to kind of show its ugly head. So I'll be honest with you, folks. I think if you're east of the Appalachian chain, it's not going to be great for snow chances, at least through, we'll say, December 4th or 5th. Now, could that change? Absolutely, it could. Don't get me wrong. But what I see right now is that ridge is going to kind of get in the way. Here's the good news. I don't think it's going to last forever. Honestly, I really think we're going to start this winter pattern with higher end snow chances into the plains, the Midwest, maybe even the Ohio Valley. But then I think as we get further into December, we're going to start to up the chances of that snowfall here into the eastern U.S. Why is that? Well, I think the NAO could get a little bit positive here right at the start of December. That would produce a pattern like this where the troughing maybe is a little bit further west than we would like. Also, the MJO, it's going to be a little bit behind as well. So the MJO is going to get into a more favorable phase once we start to get towards, maybe a week or so after this, the middle of December. So I know that seems like a far away time frame, but if you're a fan of a white Christmas, I think the pieces are lining up pretty well. It'd be better to, let the plains in the northern U.S. get their snow to start December, lay the snowpack, and then become more favorable with the pattern as we go deeper into the month. Like I said, though, doesn't mean you won't see snow. So let's kind of talk about some of the models a little bit more. Let's talk about the teleconnections, and then we'll end out the video with the ensemble chances of seeing snow over the next 15 days or so. All right, now that you know the upper level pattern, let me show you the Thanksgiving storm potential, and then we'll get into the teleconnections. Here's the European model, and you can see it begins to develop here right around this coming Monday or Tuesday. Remember, timestamp above my head. You can see 10 a.m. November 24th. Should be pretty easy, to understand what that means. You keep it going, though, and then the storm, really not that snowy for most of us. You get a real nice blizzard up into Canada, but the cold air just lacking behind the real piece of energy. And instead, this is just kind of a warm rain. This is by Wednesday, the day before Thanksgiving. See some scattered showers and storms for many of us. But then by Thanksgiving afternoon, the front starts to work in. You see all of these blue contours here that I'm outlining in pink, because why would I outline it in blue, right? That would make too much sense. That's the cold front working in, and really gets in by the time we get right around here into Black Friday or so. And you can see there's that first shot of cold air. Does have some really good lake effect snow. I will mention that. You can see that up here into the Northeast and into the the Great Lakes rather. Definitely showing some lake effect out of that system, but mainly rain for the storm itself. On the European at least. There's the GFS. Let me back that up. Did not mean to show you that. Oops. Got a spoiler. That was way out La La Land GFS, so take that with a grain of salt for sure. Not a forecast, as my buddy Mitch West would say. Here we go, though, for the Thanksgiving storm. There comes that little southern piece of energy. It starts to move on through. This is this coming Monday afternoon. Works through the Ohio Valley. Again, the cold piece to the north is lacking behind it, so right now, doesn't look like they're going to phase together and get a big snowstorm, but you can see the GFS does get some rain. This would be for Tuesday afternoon, and then by Wednesday afternoon we look a lot more dry. And here you go for Thanksgiving and Black Friday. That cold air starts to ooze south, and yeah, it shows some weird little mischief into the Carolinas for Black Friday. Are we getting snow in the Carolinas for Black Friday? I'm highly skeptical, to say the least, but that's what the GFS shows. But more importantly, also shows that lake effect snow up into the Northeast. All right. Those are the two models for the Thanksgiving storm. You can see, not that exciting, but we're laying the groundwork. It's going to drag the cold air in. It's going to start to get the pieces back together for higher snow chances later on. And another big piece to that is the teleconnections. So let's get to that. That's kind of the fun part for the long-range forecasting and break it down for you. All right, let's get to the even nittier and grittier stuff. We'll start with the polar vortex. It's the famous word that everyone uses whenever they want clicks and stuff on social media, myself included. So don't act like I'm gonna exclude myself from that. But what in the world even is it, and is it gonna make a return this winter? Well, let's start with what is it? How about that? So the polar vortex is basically just a big block of cold air stuck up into the polar regions, up into the Arctic, where Santa's loading up his sleigh and stuff this time of year. And what can happen is whenever it starts to weaken, you'd think, okay, well, it's losing the cold, but that's actually good news for snow lovers. Whenever it weakens, it starts to let that cold air get sent south. Now, that's part of the puzzle. The other part of the puzzle is where does it get sent south? A lot of the times it can get sent to Siberia, into Europe, the United States. That could be the Western United States, the Eastern United States. So it's not always guaranteed to be a slam dunk for cold in a place like Cleveland or New York, Chicago, Charlotte, Atlanta. It could be anywhere, is I guess the point I'm making. But for forecasting it, we use something like this. This is the U-wind, and basically, I'm going to draw a pink line here. This is the starting point, or at least whenever the model starts running. Really, we're more like right here now. Notice how we're starting to work down the map here. Basically, all of these are ensemble members. So this is like the European ensembles I always show you. All the members that get it below this pink line, and I'll kind of circle it in black here just so I can differentiate it, indicate that it's going to weaken and start to send cold air southward. And that's a pretty high number of members that are showing that. And the timing on that would be right around the start of December. So that first shot of cold air into right after Thanksgiving might not even be related to the polar vortex. In fact, I think that's just more of a classic polar front. An Arctic front, though, is the ones that really get cold air going, and that's what some of the model data is showing with that second shot of cold air I talked about towards the first week of December. Now, where does it happen and all? Right now, kind of favored into the plains. Could it shift further east? It absolutely could. We'll see. But this is one of the reasons for that, and it looks to stay pretty negative through maybe even the first half of December or so as it stands right now. Here's another thing to talk about, the MJO. And I know this picture is kind of blurry. I got this from weather.us. It's a blog, so check them out. Obviously, I did not make this graphic, so I'm not going to pretend that I did, but it does a good job at showing what we need to talk about. The MJO has 8 phases, 1 through 8. And notice, phase 1 I'm going to circle phase 2, and I'm going to circle phase 8 here. These are our cold phases in the eastern United States. These are the phases you want to be in if you want more wintry weather, cold weather. So again, keep that in mind. 1, 2, and 3, those are the key ones. You can see all the blue in the United States indicating cooler weather. And again, I know it's a little blurry, but just trust me if you can't quite see it. All the other phases, 7, 5, and let's see, 5, 3, 4, right? I think those are all the numbers. And 6, yeah, that's the other number I'm forgetting there, are warmer phases. So what about the MJO? What's it going to do? Well, right now, we are in phase 6. And obviously, that's one of the warmer ones. Remember, I said 8, 1, and 2 are the colder ones. 6 is a warmer phase. We're going to start to rotate into 7, it looks like, through about the first week or so of December. And that's one of the reasons I also think that pesky southeast ridge could hang on for a bit longer. Again, the MJO is still in a warmer phase, so we're fighting that. But what starts to happen once we get right around the middle of December onwards, or after the first week, we start to rotate into phase 1, and that's when things start to turn colder. So, like I've said, no matter what, snow chances rising, really Thanksgiving onward, but we might have to wait our turn here, east U.S., I should say, east of the Appalachian chain. I think maybe we start with the northern plains getting some action, the Midwest getting some action, and then by maybe a week or so into December onward, towards the holidays, again, perfect timing, some of the pieces really start to come into a better agreement that it could be our turn as well. It's not the only thing. We've also got the NAO to look at. So let's go ahead and take a look at that and talk about how that could affect the forecast. And then I'll show you snowfall probabilities on the ensembles. Here's another piece to the puzzle. This is the NAO, or the North Atlantic Oscillation, is its proper term, if you will. It's got 2 phases, a positive phase and negative phase. We've talked about this the past couple of days. Basically, a negative phase is more favorable for snow in the east. You can see that here on the left-hand picture. The jet stream dips down into the eastern U.S. That brings cold air and brings a favorable storm track as well for snow. Positive phase is more zonal, as we say, just meaning kind of west to east flow across the country. That just brings more mild air and not as well-defined of a storm track. So you want a negative NAO for snow in the east. How's that look to unfold? over the coming time period? Well, we're starting to kind of, I'd say, work our way up to a bit more of a positive phase now through about December 1st or so, as the GFS ensembles are showing. Now, I wish I had European data with this, but unfortunately I just don't. And you can see here, by the time we get right here, again, I'll kind of keep that black line there, or I guess I won't because it's kind of in the way, but we start to get positive. And that's something that, like I said, I think is going to influence that southeast ridge to be there, unfortunately. It's also why this is going to be kind of transient cold air. It's going to come and then it's going to go and then it's going to come again. It's not being blocked in like we would want with an NAO that is negative. So that's something to watch. But then right at the end here, a lot of the members, like I said, after the first week or so of December or getting into that time frame, start to tank it negative again. And if we can get that to happen, that's going to be really good news for snow lovers in the eastern United States. We could finally maybe drag some of that cold air and that active storm track from the plains and back our way. So something to keep in mind. But you'll notice the range here of possibilities is quite high. A lot of them have it positive, a lot of them have it negative, but generally speaking, it looks like turning positive for now, and then maybe after the first couple days of December, starting to get back negative, which would obviously be a good thing, like I said, for snow lovers. All right, that's the NAO. Let's show you two more maps, and that's going to be snowfall probabilities in the ensembles, and then I'll let you go. Start with the European ensembles, and what is it showing? Well, not a whole lot of snow chances now through right about here. Now, this is Wednesday of next week. So like I said, the next week's pretty warm. It's pretty boring, folks, for snow fans, at least. That's why we've got to talk about 1,000 miles into the future. But here we go. By next Wednesday, like I said, we've got that snowstorm up into Canada. Could that clip portions of the northern United States? It could. Could it link up with the cold air and get snow further south? Also could. You could see the European ensemble starting to show snow chances into the Rockies. And then as you keep it going further ahead into time, starts to get into the plains. Now, not very high chances, but more than zero, so we'll watch it. And then the bigger story, like I've mentioned, is it looks like much higher snowfall chances into the Great Lakes. Lake effect snow right after Thanksgiving. This will be the 29th, so right after Black Friday, even up into Michigan, Pennsylvania, New York, the typical lake effect snow regions. And then you keep it going, and then notice what starts to happen. Kind of what I've been alluding to, higher snow chances into the plains, into the Midwest, into the northern U.S. Like I said, southeast ridge could get pesky, so this would mean a storm track, something kind of like this. And I know that's annoying for my friends in the Carolinas, Virginia, and the I-95 corridor, but this is not a bad thing. Remember, the more snowpack we get up here into Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, and surrounding areas, the better for us long term, especially if the pattern changes right after that snow is laid. It's going to be a lot easier by the middle of December to maybe get a southeastern snowstorm or a mid-Atlantic snowstorm, or places that might also want to see some of those flakes fly. Here's the GFS ensemble. I'll show you the same thing. There's that northern stream energy by in the middle of next week. This is Tuesday, Wednesday. Then gets further south and shows potential to even Nebraska, Kansas, Missouri, Iowa, the Midwest, much like I showed, and even tries to get some northwest flow down into the Appalachian chain. We'll see if that ends up happening, obviously far out into time. And then, keep snow chances pretty high into the northern U.S. through the first couple of days of December. And I think that's something that's looking pretty likely. And then after that, like I said, I keep saying the middle of December, I really do think that's when things really turn much more favorable into the United States east of the Appalachian chain. But until then, we'll lay the snowpack, we'll take these shots of cold air, and we'll keep on thinking snow. But I'll be honest, I'm feeling pretty optimistic about December. Some of us might have to wait till later in the month, but all things considered, looks pretty good. You up the amount of chances of snow, one's bound to hit eventually, right? So that's the good thing with all those teleconnections that we've been looking at. All right, that's all I've got for y'all. Y'all have a great rest of your Wednesday. Reminder, I'll be live tomorrow night with BGWX. We'll be breaking this thing down. I'll put out a link sometime today, share it on social media, just so everyone is reminded of that. I think 7:30 probably is the start time we're going for. We got that coming up. I'll be on WCCB this weekend. Obviously, I'll still have a Friday video as well. I'll be at by the way, if you live locally for WCCB, I'll be at the Concord Christmas Parade, the Monroe Christmas Parade, the Navant Health Uptown Parade by next Wednesday. And then I think also we've got Morganton and Rock Hill, I want to say, on the list as well. So if you live in any of those towns, you'll maybe see me on the float. So definitely wave and say hi if you happen to go to any of those. All right, y'all have a great one. Stay safe. Thanks, Snow. And I'll see you all next time.